think I know better than anyone that there's a whole bunch of candidates out there that are less than ideal for this year's local body election. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some great candidates running as well all over the Motu. So I figured I'd sit down, have a chat to some of them, learn about what it is that they want to bring to the table, see who it is that's running with it this election. Oh, recording. Right. Hello there, kia ora. Welcome to the show. I have finally decided on a name for the show as well. We're going to go with Running With It because it's an election and we're going to be running. Today's guest is one of the most passionate people I think I have ever met when it comes to local government, Dr. Will Flavell from the Henderson Massey Local Board. Kia ora, Will. How are you doing?
Kia ora, Paul. I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
Yeah, a little bit drained. It's an exhausting season and I'm not even running. I don't envy how much you must have to get out and about and deal with people and stuff like that. I'm not a people person all the time. So early days so far for the campaign, but what's sort of the feedback that you've been getting out there from people about how they feel it's going so far?
Yeah, I've been campaigning for a few months now. It's really important to get out there as much as possible. So, for example, in the weekend, I went to one of our local Samoan churches and attended their service there and had a conversation with many of the attendees of that church. One woman talked about her children, wanting to buy a home in the future and how difficult it is, and another woman said that rent is really high. In West Auckland, and so looking elsewhere in terms of cheaper rent. And that for me really aligns with, I guess, what New Zealanders are generally feeling, the pain of the cost of living. We know that there are a huge amount of people looking at Australia as the destination to be. And I know a lot of families, particularly here in West Auckland, have moved over with the idea of earning more. And so, yeah, I guess the cost of living is really an important issue that I think both local government and central government can deal with.
How would you describe your vision then for both the area that you're in, out west, and for Tamaki Makaurau as a whole, for Auckland as a whole?
Yeah, so I'm proud to be a Westie, proud to live in West Auckland, and I've represented West Auckland for the last 12 years on the Henderson Massey Local Board, and we have about 140,000 people. I guess for me, West Auckland used to be the place where things were affordable. Housing, community was a strong focus. We knew each other, we saw each other in West Auckland. And I think the vision for me is still the same vision that I had 12 years ago when I first stood as a 20-something-year-old back in the days. I'm a big believer in community coming together to support each other. I'm a big believer in being able to work. For those who live in West Auckland, to be able to work in West Auckland, to be able to buy their first home or rent in West Auckland, to be able to play sports, have access to recreational facilities, libraries, parks and reserves, all centred in West Auckland. But the fact of the matter is that so many West Aucklanders have to travel, out to South and East Auckland in terms of work opportunities. And so I hear lots of stories about how a lot of people are stuck in traffic for an hour or two each day. And I guess for just mental health, for spending time with family and whānau, that's not the way to be. So I still have the vision of people being able to work, live and play here in West Auckland. It's always been a strong community hub. The diversity is what sort of draws me as well. I love the diversity here. I love hearing the different languages, seeing the different cultures, and that's what really makes me proud of being a West Aucklander. I guess Tamaki Makaurau as a whole, I guess so many issues have come about. I don't sit at the high level of Auckland Council, so we're represented by Shane Henderson as one of our councillors, and I'm supporting Karen Leone as new mayor for Tamaki Makaurau. So they deal with those sort of those wider Tamaki Makaurau issues. Yeah, but for me, I want Auckland to be a place where we thrive. I want the city to have its own sort of international standing. We have the largest Polynesian Pacific population in the world. We're a melting pot here. There are so many opportunities here in this beautiful city. and it could do better. I think we're a bit weak on the infrastructure side. That continues to be a sort of an ongoing issue about not, in terms of the developments that are happening, we're not keeping track with the infrastructure that goes alongside. With the development and the huge growing, ongoing growing population here in Auckland, we must plan ahead.
I've dealt with some of the facilities out there in West Auckland in the past in a couple of different roles, and it is I love the diversity. Like, you go from the swimming pool facility, for example, with an Elvis statue in a park next to it, and not too far from it, you've got a competitive frisbee field. Like there's some amazing stuff there that I don't think everybody is aware of out there. From a local board perspective, how do you take something like those sort of facilities that maybe not everybody's aware of, or not everyone's going to have the need of? I haven't thrown a frisbee in years, for example, but it's still a great park to do other things in. How do you take something like that, those facilities that people really seem to get out and enjoy, and use that to showcase what the region's like, and showcase to everybody else who lives in the area exactly what they've got on the doorstep, and how the local board is a really big part of making it happen?
Absolutely. So the local board definitely funds every community centre, library, and park and playground here in the Henderson, Massey, West Auckland area. Those are really important facilities for our communities. Those are some of the only, I guess, what you call free spaces where that you can rock up to your library, spend some time in the library, the different activities and programs in the libraries, being able to order books from the libraries as well. So that how our libraries function, how our parks and playgrounds function, are important to the identity of West Auckland and Auckland Council in general. I would love more people to be able to use those facilities. Within those facilities, we've got a range of different programs for toddlers, for adults, for older people. I attended a Te Reo Māori sort of intermediate class at Te Atatu Peninsula Library a couple of weeks ago. On Friday night last week, I was at Zeal. Zeal is the youth centre
Hmm.
for our rangatahi young people here in West Auckland. So it's an assortment of different facilities. And I think for my job, in terms of what I'm standing for, is to ensure that those facilities are of high quality, are constantly upgraded. We definitely do need a new pool. West Wave Pool is extremely popular, and our community have been crying out for a pool. That's one of the key advocacy items for the Henderson Massey Local Board. Of course, it requires a lot of money, so the idea of constantly requesting governing body, who I guess who are in charge of those bigger, wider budgets, to give money to be able to fund a pool. We completed a feasibility study around that particular pool. I know that the FO, particularly in Avondale, are also in line for a pool, and I think they might get their pool before we get our pool in the northwest of Henderson Massey. But that's talk that for me ensures that we're meeting the growing needs of the growing community here.
Um, that funding that comes from the governance element of Auckland Council. There's a little bit of noise from Wayne Brown over the last term about cutting funding and stuff like that back, because you guys aren't paid directly a percentage of rates that go out. It's divvied up from governance, and you're basically told go and spend on what you want to spend on to a degree, with what's ruled what's laid out in the rule book. Do you think the public is aware of just how much impact the spending from a local board actually has on a community?
Yeah, so I guess local boards have been around since 2010. So how many years is that? That's 15 years.
15
I
years now.
still, yeah, I still feel that our communities still don't have a sort of a robust understanding of what actually local boards do, and that's tricky. I guess that's local government in general,
Mm.
because I think local government is I guess the poorer cousin of central government. It's probably not sexy enough. It probably doesn't get the same sort of coverage as central government does. But I would argue that local government is just as important. Every
Mm.
decision that we make at local government directly impacts our local communities. I think it's really important to for our communities to understand the impact that that local boards or Auckland Council have in terms of our. I guess we talked about our facilities, our parks, our roads, some of the Auckland Transport projects that also the local board are able to fund, because Auckland Transport gives a little bit of funding to the Henderson Massey local board. We want to give you this funding. You tell us what sort of projects you want to use this funding for. So yeah, there's a number of things that we do that the public should be well aware of.
This year, not in Tamaki, but in many other parts of the country, there are the Māori ward referendums. The process of this, the governance part of Auckland Council has said, no, we don't want to do that this time round. In the other parts of the country, the referendum is being held because it was something that central government campaigned on when they got in. They've gone and said anybody who had a Māori ward set up in that previous government's term, you have to have a referendum now. The majority of submissions were against that. That went through to central government, and they still went ahead with it. As somebody who is not in an area where that's happening, but somebody who obviously has a very strong interest and a very strong area of expertise around this kind of Māori representation, I'm kind of curious to get your perspective on what you're hearing about the referendums around the country, and how you think the whole process has been handled.
Yeah, a couple of things. So, firstly, I've advocated strongly for Māori seats for Tamaki Makaurau. The local board has consistently um, pushed the idea to the governing body that we support Māori wards, as well as the other two local board areas here in West Auckland. So, I must make that point important. Secondly, I remember speaking at the select committee probably about 4 to 5 years ago when the Labour Party were in government, pushing the idea of how important Māori wards are in terms of representation, because Māori historically have been so poorly represented in local government, and you will know that, Paul. So this was the idea of actually allowing more Māori to have a voice at the decision making table. And I think for decision making, just with that fertility focus, I think that it's really important to have Māori at the decision making table. Um, it, it was very disheartening to see that this current government, one of the first things they wanted to do was get rid of Māori wards. It's extremely sad to see, because when I saw those Māori wards implemented and those first Māori councillors came aboard, I saw so many amazing Māori role models come through.
Mm-hmm.
Our rangatahi and our whānau are desperately crying for Māori role models, and that leadership distributed at the high governance level across Aotearoa is such a beautiful thing to see. Māori represents a lot of Māori representation, from the north to Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, and also Wellington as well. So a lot of my friends, have been elected. And they talk about how, I guess, and I just want to make this clear, many of the non-Māori colleagues of those councillors have said how privileged they have been to hear a distinctive Māori voice at the table. I've got a number of friends that have put themselves forward for the Māori wars, but also really pushing that people do support the ongoing need to have Māori wards across the councils, and that's really important.
One of my favourite stats actually about the last local body election, and it sort of ties in with the last census results, it's about 23% of the population identifies as Māori or descended from Māori, kaupapa Māori in some way. And it was the first time in the 2022 local body election that we got over 20% Māori representation around council tables. It's the first time we've ever seen an actual proportionate representation of Māori to non-Māori in those decision-making processes. And to roll that back to me just felt like a shitty thing to do, to be honest. But it doesn't surprise me with the people who are making those particular decisions. They just focused on what they felt they needed to get out there, which is frustrating. So frustrating.
Yeah, that's and I guess for me, having witnessed so many of friends become elected across the country, I think when I see our young people, look up to these people as role models, perhaps one day they may aspire to be at that same decision making table, and I think that's a really positive outlook and view for Māoridom, but not just Māoridom. I guess for everyone in general, we all benefit. And when Māori do well, we all do well. So, it's extremely sad and disappointing to see if hopefully those Māori seats, the referendum does lose, but we'll also see the outcome of the next central government election, what they do as well. I'm curious to see what happens there.
Yeah, it should be an interesting one to watch actually, because one of those flip flops between central governments if they do change at the next general election. Frustrating to not know. Damn it, not know. I was actually talking to a councillor from Waikanae a few weeks back, and he'd just got back from LGNZ, the conference down there, and his takeaway from that one is, I want everyone to meet Moko Tupania. And I go, the mayor from Far North, he goes, rock star. If people could sit down and see what he has been able to achieve and the pathway he's gone through and the change he's made and how positive he is about everything, I think that they would just look at something like a Māori Ward and go, I can see the value of this because there's something tangible coming out the end of it, even if they're not directly linked into it. It's like, I don't think we're allowed to clone Moko. I mean, we can ask, but I don't think it would be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, Moko's one of my good friends. I've known him for probably 15 or 16 years. He went to Waikato University as well. He's a couple
Mhm.
years younger. He's definitely an inspirational role model for so many. And I look at him, particularly in the far north, um, the tamariki and the rangatahi out there who aspire to be him. He's fluent in his language. He can sort of
Mhm.
walk confidently in a number of different worlds. And I think, as I said before, Paul, we all benefit from that beauty, from that beauty of his type of leadership.
Um, the voting forms come out September 9 and it's postal ballot. So people have a little bit of time to think about who it is that they're going to vote for. What do you think is the most important thing that a voter should take on board when they cast their votes this year?
Yeah, I think it's really important to research the candidates.
Hmm.
For example, a Google search may tell you a little bit more about the particular candidates who are not willing to reveal some of their real backgrounds. So be wary of that. I think it's important to research the candidates. Um, yeah, postal voting. So make sure you do get your papers in your little boxes. Sometimes mail can be not fully reliable. So just make sure you're able to contact the electoral commission if your papers don't get inside your letterbox in the first week or two. But what's really cool, for example, Paul, is Hwane Waititi Marae on the 15th of September here in West Auckland. You're able to rock there if you don't have your voting papers. You're able
Hmm.
to register and vote there, and I think that's really cool. I think we need to do that. I think the postal voting is such an archaic way of voting, Paul, and I like to do something similar to what we have in central government. Um, and so, because we constantly have low voter turnout for local government, people don't care, or there's not enough advertising around local government. So probably my quick tips are, if you do get your papers, maybe talk with your whānau, get all the adult members of your home, sort of vote together, and you can drop your papers off at any of the Woolworths supermarkets. Used to be Countdown, now it's called Woolworths
Okay.
or
Yeah, I
Rangers.
still call them countdown and I still get told off for it.
Yeah, so you can drop them off there. So yeah, so I think for me, make it a whānau affair,
Mhm.
or with your friends, vote with your friends, and make it sort of like a cool event. I think
I
that'd be how
like
you do
that. I know in other places, because Tamaki's a unitary authority, it's a little different to other places already. But I know in other districts, the councillors have decided in some places that they'll have them in libraries and swimming pool complexes and stuff like that for voting boxes. Do you know if that's the same here?
So we've increased the Auckland Council have increased the number of voting boxes all across.
Hmm.
Definitely in the supermarkets, definitely in the libraries, some of the community centres, and I guess your main council headquarters across Tamaki Makaurau. Just before, I also wanted to tell, which I haven't mentioned, I'm actually running for the Waitakere Licensing Trust
Hmm.
for the first time. It's something which it's an issue that I grappled with, but I think I think it was time, and so we wanted to make that clear, both the local board and the licensing trust.
Do you, tell me a little bit about the licensing trust, because in other places they don't exist. So it's they pop up in some places, but not others. So I don't know if everybody's going to be aware of exactly what a licensing trust is set up for and how they work.
Yeah, Paul, many moons ago when I first moved to West Auckland, I noticed that you couldn't buy alcohol in the supermarket. And I
Hmm.
thought, oh, this is strange. I mean, I thought, oh, this is cool, but kind of strange. What's happening here? So West Auckland, most of West Auckland is run by a trust which have control of the sale of alcohol and bars. The idea is that it's supposed to control, I guess, alcohol sales. There's also pokie machines, also that the trust have authority of. And so what you're doing is that you're voting people into these trusts. So you've got the Porters Licensing Trust in the Newland to Tarangi area. And here in Henderson and Te Atatu, you've got the Waitakere Licensing Trust. So when you elect people onto those trusts, they sort of decide where the where some of the profits of that money goes to. I have spoken to many of the sports clubs, things like that, who have received thousands of dollars from the trust in terms of the upgrade of their facilities. A lot of the schools gave money for bikes and computers. I noticed a lot of scholarships, university scholarships, supporting kids on sports trips and excursions and things like that. So only in certain parts of Aotearoa, Woody Licensing Trust out in South Auckland. I think there's partially in East Auckland and here in West Auckland. I think in Invercargill too. You have
Oh,
control over alcohol. Yeah.
that's a strange little glitch, but more
Yes.
democracy. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. I love the fact there's more democracy around it. I think there's also one in the Hutt Valley.
Okay. I didn't know that before, but yeah.
I remember it. It was there at the last local body election, and I remember it because there was one of the candidates I looked into was running for it, and I never found out whether or not he got in. So, I mean, the trust hasn't sunk into the hut hasn't sunk into the harbour in Wellington, so I'm sure it wasn't too bad. But yeah, it's weird though that like out where you are, which is you're a 20-minute drive from me. Here, I could have gone down to the liquor shop already tonight and pick stuff up, and we'll go to the supermarket and get something. Different
Yeah.
rules in different places.
Historic here in West Auckland. They've had enough number of referendums in the past, and the majority have still supported the trusts.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I think that many of those who support the trust sort of don't want to emulate other parts of Auckland where
Mhm.
it's sort of like an alcohol store on every single corner, too many alcohol outlets. So this sort of controls the number of alcohol outlets where they're sold, and the idea that much of the profits goes out into the community. And I think West Auckland genuinely likes that. Mm.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a great way to spend the money. It helps people in the community and it keeps people safe. And yeah, other places could learn from that. Dr. Flavel, it is always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me.
Kia ora, Paul. Thank you for having me.
Anytime, and good luck this year.
Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ngā mihi.
Hey, don't forget to give the video a like if you haven't done so already, and make sure you hit that subscribe button for the most in-depth coverage of local government elections anywhere in the Motu.